All right, this is lesson 2.5, Algebra 1, solving equations involving absolute value, okay? First of all, we need to remember what absolute value is. So let's go back to 7th grade a little bit. What is the definition of absolute value? Braxton?
It's the total of the numbers.
No, we had a,
Or the sum
no,
difference.
you're getting closer. How about the distance? Ooh,
Yeah, the distance between two numbers, right?
no, the distance a number is
From zero.
from 0. Okay? And distance is always, oh, we don't remember that. Distance is always what?
Equal.
Nope,
Positive.
positive. Who said that?
I get
Who's I?
person.
Thank you. Actually, distance is always positive. So absolute value is the distance a number is from 0, and distance is always positive. So if you remember right, if I had the absolute value of 4, okay, that means how far is 4 from 0? And it was 4, correct? If I have the absolute value of negative 128.7, how far is a negative 128.7?
128.7.
That's right. All right, and it always remains positive. Now, you have you've never seen this before, but what if I had a negative outside the absolute value, and I have 4 minus 7 inside the absolute value? Well, that is a negative of the absolute value of 4 plus a negative 7, correct? What is the absolute value? What is 4 plus a negative 7? It's a negative 3. So now I have a negative of the absolute value of a negative 3, correct? And what is the absolute value of a negative 3? 3, but I have the negative outside, right? So my answer is negative. Now, some students think that whenever an absolute value is involved, that your answer should always be positive. But if there's a negative outside the absolute value, then it can be negative. Yes?
What are the two lines on each side for?
That means absolute value.
Okay.
That's, okay?
Okay.
All right. So if it says number 1, evaluate means write the answer, right? Evaluate, and we have something like this. They use m, so I'm going to use m plus 6, the absolute value of m plus 6 minus 14 if m equals 4. Okay? All right, would you put that in there, substitute that in there, and find out what it is? So if I put 4 in there, what is the absolute value of 4 plus 6? It's the absolute value of 10, which is 10. And what's 10 minus 14?
-4.
It's plus a negative, it's a negative 4. Once again, we had an absolute value involved, and we got a negative, didn't we? Doesn't mean, just because there's absolute value that you're going to get a positive. It depends on where the minus sign is. Now, if you would do this one, please. Evaluate means find an answer. 23 minus the absolute value of 3 minus 4x. We're using x this time. If x equals 2. So if I substitute in, I get 3 minus 4 times 2, right? That's 23 minus, and I got to do this, right? The absolute value of 3 minus 8. 4 times 2 is 80. I believe that's the absolute value of what? Negative 5. And so I have 23 minus what? 5, because the absolute value of negative 5 is 5, equals 18, right? How many of you got that? Raise your hand. Okay. All right, what happened, Ryan?
I messed up. I kind of need that.
Okay, so what,
I subtracted a negative 5.
okay, do you understand what?
Yeah.
All right, what about you?
Yeah, I see what I did wrong.
Okay, all right. Jackson, we good? Do you have any questions this far? Okay, Caden? All right, I'm gonna race. Okay? Now, I wanna go back to the idea of absolute value, which is what as a definition of absolute value? Chuck, what's the definition of absolute value? The distance a number is from 0, okay? So what would happen if I just said, okay, I have some number, I don't know what it is, but the absolute value of it is 4. Okay? I just said, okay, I don't know what this number is, but the absolute value is 4. Now what it means is, I don't know what this number is, but how far is it from 0?
4.
4. Okay? Can you tell me then what x is?
Negative 4 or 4.
Oh, whoa. A negative 4 and 4? Why a negative 4?
Because it's 4 away from 0.
Because it's 4 away from 0 also. So I actually have 2 answers, don't I? Jackson, do you understand that? If I say, okay, I don't know what this number is, but I do know that it's 4 away from 0. You have 2 answers, Jackson. You have,
Wouldn't it just be positive 4?
oh no.
No.
Okay, here's 1,
It's
2,
4
3,
away from
4.
0.
Here's a negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4. Here's a negative 4 and here's 4. They're both distance from 0 is 4, isn't it?
Yeah, but the
Mhm.
answer is positive 4. So
No, it doesn't matter. It says what the distance. If I put a negative 4 in here, Jackson, what's the absolute value of negative 4? Isn't that what it says?
Yeah.
Okay, if I put 4 in here, what's the absolute value of 4? So they both work, don't they?
Yeah,
Okay,
I see that.
all right. So the point of this is no matter what's in that absolute value, right? Right? It can be positive or negative, right? There's a quick way to do this, all right? Now, what if I said, well, the absolute value of x equals a negative 4?
Same as? No,
No.
no, it's not. Can't have my brain hurts.
Okay? Yeah.
Wouldn't it be 0?
No? No?
Would it still be?
Guys, Ashley,
You could do, no, you can't do that.
what does absolute value mean? The distance a number is from,
0.
and can distance is always,
Positive.
can it be that?
Mm.
Anytime you have anything in an absolute value, if I have the absolute value of Braxton, and I have it equal to a negative 14, this is no solution. It does not matter what's in that absolute value. If you have the absolute value by itself, and it equals a negative number, it is no solution. There's no way you can get a number that equals a negative. All right? Now, I'm not saying that that's it, how we solve it, because I'm going to show you how to solve it. And you're going to say, you told us it couldn't be negative. And I'll show you in a minute what you're going to do. All right. So you understand that if I take the absolute value and I get a positive number, it equals the negative and the positive, right?
Mhm.
What happens, though, number 1, and it's going to say solve each equation, then graph it. It's going to say solve and graph. Okay? You with me? All right, so now we're going to go x plus 3 in the absolute value equals 17. All right. Guys, absolute value is by itself, right? correct?
Yeah.
Does it equal a positive number?
Yeah.
All right, that's good. All right, so now we're saying the distance is 17, right? There are two numbers that this could be. Now this is this isn't x, guys. This is x plus 3. So there's two numbers that x plus 3 can go to. What are they?
14.
No, don't do that. I asked you. There are two numbers that are 17 away from 0. What are they?
Negative 17.
Negative 17 and 17. You understand what I'm saying? That means that this could be either a negative 17 or, I use the word or, it could be 17. You told me up here that x could be a negative 4 or x could be 4. I don't have x. I have x plus 3. So it can either be a negative 17 or 17. So the simplest way to think of this is whatever's in the absolute value can either be the negative of it or the positive. Now you just said, wait a minute, I thought you couldn't be negative. Well, the absolute value can't be negative, but once it's positive, I can set it equal to a negative. What's inside of it can be negative, right? What's inside of it can be negative. So now I subtract 3 from both sides. Pay attention, Braxton. I subtract 3 from both sides, which is like plus a negative. And so x can be either a negative 20, or I subtract 3 from both sides on this one. X could be 14. So my two answers are a negative 20 or 14. You understand it? And you can check it, Tater. Put a negative 20 in there. A negative 20 plus 3 is what, Tater?
Negative 17.
Negative 17. And what's the absolute value of a negative 17, Tater?
17.
There you go. All right? Are you okay, Caden? All right, I'm going to race. Any questions on this before I race? Jackson? Braxton? Ashley? All right, we're good. Okay, so let's go back now. I'm going to same directions. Oh, I forgot to graph it. I'll graph this one. I'm sorry. I forgot to graph it. So this is number 2, right?
Yeah.
The absolute value of x minus 1 equals 15. Okay? Is this number positive?
Yes.
All right, so it can happen, right? So what are my two equations that I'm going to solve from what we just learned?
X minus 1.
X minus 1 equals
15.
negative 15, or
X minus 1 equals 15.
those are the two equations I'm going to solve. Do you understand that? I'm going to change this to plus a negative, and I'm going to change this to plus a negative. All right, is everybody good with me?
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm going to subtract a negative 1 from both sides on this side. So I get x equals what? Negative 14, and I'm going to do the same over here. X equals 16, correct? All right, now folks, I have two answers. They are a negative 14 and 16, and I can check them by taking a negative 14, putting it back in, subtracting 1. Negative 14 plus a negative 1 is a negative 15. The absolute value of a negative 15 is 15. I can put 16 in. 16 minus 1 is 15. The absolute value of 15 is 15. You got it? But then it says to graph. Now, a negative 14 is a long ways away from 16, isn't it? Isn't it? So I'm going to go by 5s. Let me go a negative 15, negative 10, negative 5, 0, 5, 10, 15, 20. You'll notice that I went past both numbers on each side. So on the left I went past negative 14, on the right I went past 16. Does everybody get that? Jackson, are you okay?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to put a negative 14 right here, Jackson, and I just put it in there, and I'm going to put a negative 14 there, and notice I label it down here, right? And then I put a big fat circle on it, right? That's how we graph it. I go over here, I put 16, and I put it down here. The numbers go to the bottom. I know you're going to want to put the number at the top because it gets crowded, but that's not the way we do it. And then I put a big old fat dot on it, 16. And that's how we graph it. Do we understand? right? We're gonna do a couple more, is that all right? All right, I've got the absolute value of 2x minus 3, the absolute value that equals a negative 18. Okay, what do I do? What's that? What would it be?
2x minus 3 equals negative 18.
I don't think so.
Is it no solution?
This is no solution. I'm gonna teach you a quick way to put no solution. Put a 0 and slash it. Okay, Ashley, what Ashley was trying to do was this problem. That's a totally different problem, isn't it? So let's do this one, Ashley. You said I have 2x minus 3 equals what? Negative 18. And then, or what, Ashley?
It's 2x minus 3 equals 18.
Braxton, do you understand that?
Yep.
Jackson,
Yes.
you see how this one was no solution, but this one's possible, right?
So basically, if you have a negative answer,
If the absolute value is by itself and it equals a negative number, you're right. It's no solution. Okay? You got it?
So what if you had 2x, then a slash, then outside minus 3?
So if you had, that's a great question. So if you had absolute value minus
Yeah.
3 equals a negative 18,
Yeah,
okay, I would do plus a negative, right?
yeah,
And then I would subtract 3 from both sides, right?
yeah.
And that would give, that would isolate my absolute value,
Mhm.
and I get a negative 15. Since this absolute value is isolated, in other words, there's no other numbers with it, and it still equals a negative, it's no solution. If this number, if I added 3 and this became positive, then I could do it. That's a great question, Jackson. That is a great question. You understand what I'm saying? You have to have the absolute value by itself, and if it equals a negative number, it's no solution. Okay? Once you get it by itself, if it's equal to a negative, it's no solution. Otherwise, we can do this, what Ashley did, right? Okay, so let's do plus a negative and plus a negative. I'm going to subtract a negative 3 from both sides, and I get 2x equals plus a positive. So that would be what? Negative 15. And I divide by 2, so I get x equals negative 7.5. Now, can you leave it as negative 15 halves? You bet. However, I'm going to warn you, you're going to graph this, right? So it's easier to graph a decimal or a fraction of half than it is to graph an improper fraction, right? Ryan, right? Allie, you okay?
Yep.
I'm going to subtract a negative 3 from both sides here. Don't forget this one. I got to do this one too. Plus positive, so I have 2x equals plus a positive 21, right? And I divide by 2, what do I get?
10 and 1.
X is 10 and a half. So I'm going from first of all, I have to put it in set form. This is set form. Do you notice that I put all the answers in set form? That's the way I want it, in set form. That's the way your book will do it. Right?
So we can do decimals, or does it have?
Yes, you can on halves.
Okay.
If you have a third, no.
Okay.
Okay? So now we're going to go from a negative 7.5 to 10.5. So I better go by what?
5.
I could still go by 5s if you wanted to. So I'm going to go negative 10, negative 5, 0, 5, 10. And I got to go to 15 because this is larger, right? So a negative 7.5 is about right here, isn't it? Negative 7.5. And then 10.5 is right here, isn't it? That's really close, isn't it? 10.5. It's right here. Really close. Okay? You ready? Okay. Can I erase?
Yeah.
Braxton?
I just did that one.
All right. I'll wait. Any other questions? Chuck? Jackson?
Nope.
Tater.
Nope.
All right, here we go. You got it, Jackson?
Yeah, I got it down.
What about Jackson?
Yep, I got
All right. Okay, so now I'm going to give you a number line. This is what number? 3? 4?
it.
5? I'm going to give you a number line like this. I'm going to put 0 right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. -1, -2, -3, -4. I'm going to do this. Okay? How would you do an absolute value equation that it would be graphed like this if you solved it? You know, we've been solving all along. We're going to go backwards now. I'm going to give you the graph and I'm going to say, okay, what equation did you begin with? Excuse me. Your brain didn't hurt before, it hurt now, right?
Yeah.
Is it absolute value?
It's what?
Is it x
The absolute value of x equals?
4?
That is correct. Because 0's in the middle, and it's 4 away here and 4 away there, right? Now what happens if 0's not in the middle? Okay, what if we have another number in the middle? Let's say we have 5 in the middle. So we have 6, 7, 8, 9. So let's go 9. We have 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's see, this is 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Okay. Okay, I'm just gonna cut to the chase, right? All right. 0's not in the middle, right? Your absolute value should be always x minus your middle number equals the distance. Okay. Remember that. Your middle is whatever number's in the middle between the 2 points, right? And then it equals the distance. So it's always minus. It's always subtract because you're finding the difference. All right? That's why it's subtract. So what number's in the middle?
5.
So it's x minus 5, right? Equals, and what's the distance from 5 to each one of these numbers? 1, 2, 3, 4. So it equals what? 4. Do you understand that? Now, when it's in the negative side, it's a little ugly. Let's say a -2 is in the middle, right? So we have a -1, 0, 1. Let's just go -3, -4, -5, okay? Let's say a -2 is in the middle, and I have 1 graphed, and I have a -5 graphed, all right? We good? Go ahead and get that. Now try to figure out what the answer is. We know it's going to be the absolute value of something equals distance. So we got x minus the middle. What's the middle? Minus a -2. Well, minus a minus, right, Allie? Okay. Equals, how far are these numbers from a -2? They are 3. Now you cannot leave it like this, Braxton. Mr. Ellis will check it wrong. Okay, because we need to simplify this as x plus 2 equals 3. Does that make sense? Do not leave it as minus a minus. Jackson, say that. Do not leave it as a minus a minus. All right, we change it to a plus. So notice, when our middle is negative, we have a plus, and when our middle is positive, we have a minus. It's kind of backwards, isn't it? No offense, Ryan. Okay? Just making sure you're paying attention, Ryan. You paying attention? All right. I think we've had enough for today, don't you think, Ryan? All right, that was a long lesson, and you see why I give you tomorrow to work on it. So we're going to try to get half done tonight. So I'm going to start with 13, and I'm going to 37. I'm going to 37. So we're looking around, what, 28, 29? Right in there, trying to get to 28, 29. So your assignment, actually, is going to write it on the board, is page 110, numbers, 13 through 37. It is not due tomorrow. It is due Monday. However, do not leave it for Sunday night. Please have it done at the end of the period tomorrow or at the end of the day tomorrow. I do not want you to take it home. You will forget how to do it. Okay, thank you, Ashley, very much. Jackson, you had a question.
I'm just gonna ask you what page.
Yep, okay, all right.